let's get Sarah on the line. Is it time for a new hat? I think it is. I think it's just about time for a new hat. Here we go. There's Sarah. Give me 1 second here to change the nameplate over. I'm going to go grab... I gotta grab the Sudoku nameplate and put that on here. And here we go. Oh no! That's not the right one. That's not it. No,
that's not good.
No, that's still the Maria one. Here comes Sarah.
That's definitely not me.
And where is...
I'm covering my name. Oh no.
Oh no. Hang on.
But I'm still a black screen. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
It's loaded fine. Let me switch over. Let's see if we can switch back and get it to pop up. No. Actually, wait a sec. It really doesn't. Oh, you know what? Hang on. It is. I know what's going on here. It is. Yeah, it cropped the wrong amount here. Hang on.
We had issues with this before.
We did. Right?
I'm such a troublemaker.
No.
For any of you guys following along with try.net, I'm going to post a link in the channel.
No. You're good. There we go. Fantastic. Oh my gosh. So there she is. There's Sarah. Let me just scoot. Why am I seeing some black behind you?
Yeah.
Let's move the guest name up. There we go.
All right. Like my video's like too big.
Nah, it's fine.
Yeah.
We're good.
Big game.
Is there any way to get the recorded videos? Yes, the recorded videos will be available on YouTube later today. And if you come back to the stream later, you'll be able to click into videos on Twitch, and you'll be able to find it there as well. If you want to continue to watch on your Xbox, your PlayStation, your Nintendo Wii, or your Switch, or even your phone, gosh, for that matter. All right. For those working with Try.net, though, I'm working with Visuals. Oh, yeah, Try.net and Visual Studio 2017, they all work great.
Yeah, so the link that I posted in the chat channel is basically a template of the stuff I want to show in this next hour.
Oh, yeah.
Figure to save you guys some typing, you can copy-paste the skeleton to work with.
Okay.
And then I also checked it into the Git repo, but if we don't talk about Git till later, just create a new console application in Visual Studio, and I'll walk you through what we did.
Very cool. All right, I'm closing that, and I'm going to connect to you. Now, we're going to use something here called Visual Studio Live Share. And while we're getting that set up... Oh, gosh, I need to share my sound over to you. Right on share screen.
Don't share your sound. I can hear you just fine.
Oh, good. All right.
I'm watching the stream on one side, and I have you muted there, but I hear you through Skype just fine.
All right. So, I've got the Brady thinking music going. There we go. All right. So I think we're ready here to go over to our next topic. Let me switch back over to the code. And I'm connected into your Visual Studio instance. Thank you, David, for the subscription. That's very, very generous of you. We'll match that subscription. We'll turn it into another cool donation over to our friends at Girl Develop It. So I'm using Visual Studio 2017 here, and this is actually a feature, a cool new feature called Live Share that you can... Anybody can download and anybody can get here from, where is it, Extensions and Updates? And it's available right here, VS Live Share. Folks can download and check that out. Sarah's name is cut off. I know, she's got the big name.
We had this problem when we were doing the tech check too. Sarah Dutkiewicz is a long name. This is why I'm Sudoku.
That's right. So why don't you give folks a quick intro?
Okay. So in terms of what's going on, so we're going to
introduce yourself, Sarah.
Introduce myself. I am a troublemaker. My name is Sarah Dutkiewicz. I also go by Sudoku. Actually, it's easier to just call me Sudoku. I appear here in Jeff's stream. I appear in a few other live streams from time to time. I am a Microsoft MVP in Visual Studio. That means that Microsoft sees I do community stuff, talking about Microsoft's cool tools on various platforms too. And I also compare languages too. So I have C#, I have VB, but I also do Python, Ruby, PHP, Perl. So I kind of have to be able to switch between those and teach people how to switch between those.
Absolutely. And Miguel comments here, it looks like Java. C# does look like Java.
Similarities, but C# doesn't pollute the file system as bad as Java.
Okay. It's Java++. No. It's a little bit different than that. All right.
Java makes folders for all their namespaces and package pieces. C# doesn't do that, thankfully.
You don't have to. You can if you'd like.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
It's tempting to go crash the stream. I could crash it twice today. Oh, go over to, I guess,
yeah,
visit.
Brandoni. So, for those of you guys who are seeing us, so Brandonius is talking about crashing the stream, as in, like, he lives a couple miles away from me, and later at noon, are Dallas, so Steve Smith will be on, and Steve will be up the road from where I'm at as well. So there's a few of us in the same geographic area. So when he says crashing the stream, not actually just crashing it, but crashing at our places to visit.
Just appearing in the background as part of it. All right, so you wanted to talk about a couple things here around how we can structure our code, different things we can do.
Correct.
All right.
So the first thing I did is I created a console app. So
okay.
I'm running. So I noticed that you're running the new preview. I'm a couple steps behind in my Visual Studio.
And that's okay. And I can see where you're typing here. I've got this little tape flag that has your name there, and I'm gonna actually click your initials up here so that I follow you as you walk through here.
Awesome. So you guys can see right now I'm in program.cs. So when you create an app, the first thing it's going to create is this program.cs file. And so what I'm going to do in the program.cs is I created something called Fritz app. My app equals new Fritz app, and then my app.run. We'll explain what those are doing in a little bit, but what I did here is that way we can break up our code a little bit. Now, yes, Nema asks, Neem, they ask in the chat channel, should you open the solution by clicking on fritzbasic.sln in the Solution Explorer? Correct. So if you've cloned our repo, if you're in the C# workshop folder, Jeff merged the changes. If you pulled it in, you can go ahead and open up that SLN file. That will show you, you'll have all the code that I pushed into that, which is what you're going to see on my screen.
Yep.
All okay. Right. So the program.cs, this static void main, this is what we're starting with for our C# console app. Now I'm going to go into, so what I then did is I right-clicked on Fritz Basics in my Solution Explorer.
Mm-hmm.
Then I did add, and then under add I did class. Just so that if you guys are following along at home and starting from scratch and not cloning a repo.
So if I right-clicked here, there's the add menu item.
Mm-hmm. And right-click, add, and then go all the way to the bottom. There's an option that says class ...
Right. Now, because I'm connected into yours, I don't have all those options through this live share capability. But if I choose new file here, it just allocates a new file, and I can create it with whatever I'd like. But in Visual Studio 2017, you're right, you get this great set of templates that you can create.
Correct. And Nema, correct, Jeff does not have the solution open. Jeff is actually connected into my setup.
Right.
It's because we're on live share and he's on mine. He doesn't actually have all these files over there right now.
Right. They'll appear as I need them.
Correct.
So.
All right. So when you add the class, it's just this plain old C# class.
Mm-hmm.
I called it Fritz app. Why?
Okay.
Because
I like naming things after myself. What can I tell you?
You know.
And yeah, you're right, Janescu. Just to make sure folks aren't getting confused here, I'm seeing Sarah's app, I'm seeing her code, and I'm able to touch and interact with it, right? Because I'm using live share. This is a great way for you to pair program with other folks without having to look at pixels. Okay. Yeah. Visual Studio Live, Sarah. All right. I guess that's one way to call it. Sure.
Oh, dear. I don't know that you guys want me in your Visual Studio. Anyhow, so okay. I have this class. It is in the same namespace. So in the last session, you guys were talking about what is a namespace. Think of it as it's a package. And because they're in there, they're talking to each other. Nem112, or Neem, how do you pronounce it? Yes, he could open the solution, but he wouldn't be sharing on mine. He would have his own copy of the solution. With live share, he's able to interact with me on my particular copy of the solution.
Yep.
So he could technically follow along if he wanted in his own solution, but then that gets really confusing as to, Are we looking at Sarah's screen or are we looking at Jeff's following along?
This allows you to see both of us working together.
Yes.
All right. So,
okay.
So this is a class, and we have a constructor like we were talking about there on line 9.
Mm-hmm. So line 9 through 12.
Okay.
And as you can see,
doing anything.
It's not doing anything. It's just there right now, and it's just so that we can talk about constructors later.
Okay.
But then I have this one public void run. Now, technically, I could have made it a static, but again, I did a particular approach so I can show you guys talking about constructors and the new keyword if we have time. I want to get through the loops and the structures before we go back into the other stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Now, so what's going to happen is in my program.cs, I tell it to create a new Fritz app and then to tell it to run. Now, what happens with run is I want to display a menu, and then I want to get the user's input as to what they want to run. This is already built up. I did this on purpose, again, to save coding and give us some stuff to talk to. So basically, I'm going to store the user's input in a string. Now, this part will not work in try.net because try.net does not work with console.readline or console.readKey. When I tried that, it went kaboom. It had stack traces that an ordinary beginner would go, oh my god, that's gross and scary.
Okay.
I didn't want to do that route. So the Visual Studio solution in our repo is truly broken up into these files. So how does run know what to run? So the async awake was asking this in the channel of how does run know what to run? Well, run knows what to run because run is right here. Actually, let me show you something cool so you guys can actually see how run knows what to run. So I'm coming back to program.cs. I'm going to set what we call a breakpoint on line 9.
There, let me follow you. There you go.
Okay. So we're in my main. This breakpoint, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my Visual Studio. I'm going to tell it to run my application. That breakpoint's going to say timeout. Let's look at and see what's going on. And we'll go step by step so you guys can see what run looks like.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell it to go ahead and do Fritz Basics.
So now you're starting it over on your side. It's actually going to attach my debugger as well. You see how the bar right there behind me turned orange? That means that my Visual Studio is in debug mode.
Yes. And you can see that he's hitting a breakpoint. Notice that the breakpoint appears on Jeff's screen with that yellow background.
Yep. So that indicates with the little border here, that indicates this is the currently running line.
Mm-hmm. And so now I'm going to go ahead and tell it to step into. So step into, if you're following along at home on your Visual Studio, it's a button that has the arrow pointing down. The default is
this one right
8.
here.
Yeah.
I have it set to F11.
Yeah, it's unfortunately or fortunately you can change your keyboard mapping, so that's why I want to talk about the icon a little as well.
But Sarah's the one stepping through here, right? I'm hands off.
Yeah, actually, you could put your hands up above the microphone and people would be like, whoa,
like you
look
just
at
don't
that.
care. Whoa!
Hooray! But look at, so I'm going through what this is called the constructor. So this is creating an instance of our class. All right, so now
and you've put it in
app
this...
is an instance of our class.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go into what they call the run method. So how does it know to go to run? Well, because that's what my code is telling it to do. Okay, so now I'm going to take a step into run.
And if you look right there above my head, you can see, I can see the entire call stack, right? You can see, right, I know that it started on the main method, and now it went from main into run, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as we call other methods, this becomes a stack, right, with the most recent thing on top that's called.
Yeah, that's I always tell people, if you know the story of Hansel and Gretel, how they use breadcrumbs to find their way home, a call stack is our breadcrumbs to know how did we get here and how do we find our way back to the beginning.
And Brendan is pointing out I can use the immediate window here.
I see that. Don't be sabotaging me, though.
I'm just adding 1 + 1. I can inspect and I can look at things over here as the debugger is running.
All right, so now I'm going to take a step in so you guys can see what's going on. So that was Async Awake who asked, how does run know what to run? Because of the debug. Yeah, Async Awake, for which, but at the same time.
Yeah.
All right, So I'm going to ask the user for input. Now, what I'm using here on line 17 through 23, that's called a do while loop.
Okay, do while. That sounds like it's going to get busy doing something and keep running for a while.
Correct. So what it's going to do is it's going to do whatever I tell it to inside, and that while means it's going to stop doing, or it'll continue to run while that condition is true. So what I've got here is I'm going to have it display the menu, hence why I named my method display menu.
Okay.
And then I'm going to have the user enter something from the menu. And then I'm going to process their input. So based on the user selection in the menu, I'm going to do something else. And I'm going to continue to do this until the user presses Q. And it could be lower, it could be upper. Something you're going to see is I'm always going to do a 2 upper on a string, because users, they may be lazy. They may not press their caps lock, or they may press their caps lock. I don't want to have to account for that laziness.
Right. That 2 upper method just says take whatever this string is, the user input, and make it uppercase.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then we'll keep running that. So the do while loop is a loop that we want to use every single time that something needs to run at least once. And in a menu, you want to display the menu at least once to give them an option before it drops out. So that's why I chose do while.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to now continue through the debugger a little bit more just so you guys can see how this steps in. So if I go into display menu.
Oh, look at this.
Up. Look at your call stack. Now the display menu appears at the top of the call stack.
All right, let me squat down a little bit here. There it is.
Yeah.
You can see display menu right there.
And what you're seeing there is display menu. I'm on line 67.
Yeah, right here. Okay.
So the debugger is really good at telling us what line number we're in that particular file, and what method we're in as well.
And I can actually click over here and look at where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll jump me to that location and show, well, here's what was called that got us to that next thing above it.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah. So being able to debug with this stuff is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I am going to go back up to my run method and set a breakpoint on line 20. And the reason I'm telling you guys this is because I want to skip through. I don't care to go step by step through the console.write lines.
Okay.
So I'm going to use the continue function of the debugger. So continue will play till the next breakpoint.
Okay.
Okay. So now you can see the user input is just kind of holding there. Now, Jeff, can you actually enter an input in the command line?
I actually can't see your terminal.
Ooh.
So that's one thing that LiveShare, right, when you're running a console application, you can't see the terminal.
Okay.
That's okay. So you can do that from your side and we'll see it process.
All right, so I'm going to press number 1. You guys can now see.
All right, it's back at that debug point. Yeah, sorry, Tianisla, where it doesn't quite support that yet.
It's getting there. So you guys should see now that we're at the breakpoint. Jeff, if you hover over user input, do you see the value in there?
So if I hover, yep. So it's very, very small there, but you can see there's a 1 that it captured. And I can actually go into my immediate window, and I can reference it as well. If I just type in user input, it'll output, right, in the immediate window what that value is. And we also have another window called locals over here that'll show you the local variables in this method. So there's user input, and it automatically shows us that's a 1. Taryn, thank you so much for the subscription. I really appreciate that, and we'll make sure that we send another donation over to our friends at Girl Develop It. And as a subscriber, you get access to that C# bot emote. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Okay, so after we've got the user input set to 1, let's actually do something with that user's input.
Okay.
I'm going to call my process menu user input, which the breakpoint jumped over, so I'm going to go back in the console and tell it really I want 1. So we can step through so you guys can see what's going there. So if I go to process menu, make sure. Okay, so you're in the process menu. We're going to pass one into this. So what happens with methods? So we can create our own methods, and what you're seeing here, these are all methods I created myself. These are not something that's already built into Visual Studio. This is something that we break down methods into, oh, I want to say like units of work or functionality. You break it down into reasonable stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll hear more about that from Phil later on when he talks about solid principles as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, just so you guys are aware of how I've got that broken up. So we're going to step into the process menu, and you guys can see what it's going to go on. So I have a method. I have a parameter called menu choice, which means that I just take in a string. Give me any string, and then I'm going to do some stuff based on that string.
And you can see in our locals window, the menu choice that it received is that value 1 that you called it with.
Correct. And I explicitly called menu choice a different variable name from user input to avoid any confusion, but we could have kept the name user input and that would have been fine. But this is to show you that you can pass that value over like that. Okay, so now I'm going to, based off that menu choice value, I'm going to do something. I'm using what is called a switch statement. So in terms of logic, so if you think about things, if I do something, then there might be a reaction. Or if there's, in this case, if I choose the number 1, then I want to be able to see hello world.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do switch. All right, so we know my value is 1. So we come into case 1. Case 1 is going to call
switch. Just real quick for folks familiar with other programming languages. Switch case is very similar to what you've seen at like a select case, right? Or if then else's, where you're only testing one value and you just you want to say if it's this value then do this. If it's actually that other value, do this, and that's what these case statements are that you see here.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and step into that. So my hello you. You can see that I now into yet another method, so the call stack gets yet another method in it, and I'm passing in the name Saduki.
Yep, there it is. Hello you.
And both the try.net example and our solution have the comments in there for string concatenation, the old school way of putting in variables, and string interpolation, which is a little more readable.
A lot more readable. Oh my gosh. I almost want to start every with the new feature, the new string interpolation feature, like you see here on line 85. I almost want to start every quote with a $sign first. And I know folks in the JavaScript world, they use the backtick to get that same feature in JavaScript. It's tremendous to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Dudek was asking, is it possible to have form controls like radio buttons and pass them into a switch? You can pass in the property of the form control.
So they pass in the value of that control.
Right. Or the value, whatever text was captured in a text box, you can pass that in in that switch. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's where that is. So then I'm going to have it'll write hello name to the console.
There you go. And I can see here what the string format returned.
Mm-hmm.
And you've backed out. So now we're walking back up the stack. It finished that inside method, and it popped it off the top of the stack, and now we're back in process menu.
Yeah, so Visual Studio's debugging tools makes it easier for us to see what method is getting called when, and how does it know what to run for that method? Well, if you use the debugger to step through it, that's a way of being able to see that.
And let's make sure that folks know that you get these same features in Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio for Mac if you're not on Windows and using Visual Studio 2017.
That's true. All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue. All right, and unfortunately, since I can't share the command window that I'm looking at, it does say hello Saduki in both of those. So it did call out, it did write out like it should. Now, I'm going to press Q to quit.
All right, so you pressed Q on your side, so that read line finished, right? So read line is just receiving some entry from the command line, and now it's
Not
stepping
yet.
through.
We're at the process menu, and I'm going to go ahead and set a breakpoint on 24 just so you guys can see that we're going to get out of the loop. And now that we're out of the loop, yeah, I hard-coded in my name async await. in the code, you can go ahead and change it to whatever you wish.
Absolutely.
It was just hard-coded in there so you guys could see what string interpolation and string concatenation look like. So you could put whatever name you want in there.
All right.
All right, so then I'm going to do a write out. So a good user experience is if you're going to end a program, especially on a console thing, let the user know that it's an end and then give them a way out. So I'm going to say press any key to quit. Console.read key, what's nice is that it's going to listen. As soon as you press a key, it's going to process it and then close our console window. So I'm going to run that. It says happy coding, press any key to quit. So I press any key and my console window is closed.
And you see that my Visual Studio, the orange border on the bottom here is gone. It's gone back to purple to indicate that I'm back in coding mode. I want to call out J.R. Gifford here in the chat room is saying, the Linux user in me looks forward to giving Visual Studio Code and LiveShare a try. You know what, J.R. Gifford? Visual Studio Code and LiveShare will work not just with .NET, but with JavaScript and Go and C++. Choose one of your favorite languages, and it'll probably work there. You don't have to use .NET with Visual Studio LiveShare, so give it a try.
Hey, J.R. Gifford, bring your laptop to our meeting this afternoon, and we can play.
There you go. Wait a sec, you're bringing your own folks into the chat room here? Central Ohio is taking over my stream here. Look at this.
No, not Central Ohio. I am Northeast Ohio.
Sorry. Oh, okay. All right, Cleveland area.
Cleveland area, we represent.
Okay.
Anyhow. All right. So this process menu that I was talking about, I also have different methods so we could talk about things like if-else and switch and maybe booleans and things like that.
Okay.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to get lunch if-else. So I am, are you still following me over there?
I am, oops, I got disconnected from you. I can see you down there. Now we are down on 36. All right. So this is a different method.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to press F12 to go to the definition for it.
Thank you very much for the subscriptions there, Space Shot and Open Window. We'll make sure we match those and get those over to Girl Develop It as well.
Space Shot, hey Chris.
Woohoo!
That's Philly representing.
How many folks from the local user group there are in the chat room? Oh my gosh. Brendan's got folks he's bringing in.
I was going to say, we have all sorts of folks from all over, which is cool to see. Anyhow, so the F12 that I pressed was to drop us down to the method's definition. And so I'm going to just do a simple statement of, if it's Tuesday, it's Taco Tuesday.
Of course. If
it's Friday, pizza. And then any other day, bacon. Granted, I had this conversation on Twitter. Bacon's good every day. But...
So while you're setting up that if statement, my daughter believes that she's a vegetarian for everything except for chicken McNuggets and bacon.
I like that.
I think that's a good justification.
Okay, so I'm going to put a string of today equals Friday just for sanity's sake.
Okay.
And I'm going to say if today is equal to Tuesday, then I'm going to say console.writeLine Taco Tuesday. So this will only write out to my console if today is Tuesday.
Okay. That seems... So why do we have to use this double equals in that if statement, right? So we're testing. I'm used to seeing in BASIC, I only have to use one equals. Why do I need two equalses?
Well, thankfully, C# we only have to deal with the one equal and two equal, and we're not JavaScript's three equals. I had to mention it. So the single equal is what we call the assignment operator. That means you're setting a thing on the left equal to the value on the right.
Gotcha.
Double equal is a comparison operator. So is the thing on the left equal to the thing on the right? That's where the double equal is. And if you have to deal with JavaScript, I apologize. Triple equal goes into types. But we are in C#, and type is already taken care of for us. So.
All right. That makes sense.
So the structure of the if statement is if, and then in your parentheses you have your condition. And I'm just going with simple conditions just for the sake of time right now.
Sure.
And you don't technically need curly braces if there's just one line, but I say use the curly braces for readability, and so that if you do end up having to add code later on, they're already in there for you. Now, I said, if it's Tuesday, it's tacos, but what if it's Friday? I'm going to say else, if, and then if today is equal to, so today double equal to Friday, then I could do cancel out right line.
So this is saying if I got false on that first test on line 95, I'm going to scroll down a little, move that up in my screen here.
Yep.
If the first test here on line 95 was false, well, here's a... hang on. Windows scrolled real quick. If this first answer is false, no, it's not Tuesday. Well, go run this other test and see, well, is it Friday instead? Okay.
All right, so we've got the if, we've got the else if, but then what about any other day? Well, then that comes to the optional else clause. I say optional because not all situations where you use if, else if will need an else, but in this case we do because we need to acknowledge that there are other days besides Tuesday and Friday.
So if both of the other ones are false, then do this.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're going to say bacon. And I apologize to the vegans and vegetarians out there. I am a meat eater, though.
I just want to throw a quick thank you out there to all the folks that are posting pictures of where they are watching the workshop here today on Twitter. Thanks so much for doing that. That's really cool to see. So there is no triple equal, there is no quadruple equal in C#. We stop at 2. We think that that's good enough.
Correct. Now, so you guys see the get lunch if else code. I'm going to actually highlight and copy and paste that.
Okay.
So I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to come down to this get lunch switch. And the reason why I'm going to paste it there is, one, so that you guys can see what it looks like with a switch statement getting refactored into an else if.
All right, so let me scroll down a little here. All right. So, yeah, we were talking about switch earlier. We are testing the same value a couple times here.
Correct. And because this is a value-based switch, I can actually change my if, else into a switch statement.
Okay.
Now, the reason why I say that is because not all if, and else statements like this can actually go into a switch statement. So if I'm doing a check, for example, on a number, and maybe checking to see, is it less than 5, or is it greater than or equal to 5 and less than 10, I can't use that in a switch statement. That has to be if, else. This, on the other hand, because we're checking it just on a value, I can get away with using what they call a switch statement. I'm going to say switch on today. I'm putting this above my if because I'm going to break it down as to how we work with that.
Okay.
Okay. So if today equals Tuesday, so this line, I'm going to grab it. I'm going to cut my if and bring it to my switch just so you guys can see how that looks. Visual Studio is like, that is gross. I'm going to say case Tuesday.
So the case is effectively saying equals.
Yes. So if today equals Tuesday, run this code.
Okay.
And then I put that break in there. That break says, if it's Tuesday, I don't want to run any other code in this switch statement. Get me out of this switch statement.
Yeah.
And yes, like there's some people talking about failing through in switches. I don't like when you stack cases and just keep failing through.
Well,
use breaks.
Let's finish the simple scenario here. Then let's briefly mention the fall through.
Sure. All right. So then case Friday, and that is the case, the value, colon. And I'm going to cut this. Also, for people who don't know, with Visual Studio, if you just put your line on the cursor and press Control X, it cuts the whole line. You don't actually have to highlight the line. I know many people who do highlight it.
You're serious?
I'm serious.
Hang on, I didn't know this.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so if you put your cursor in the line and press Control X, it takes the whole line for you.
Wow. 98 Codes, thank you so much for the subscription. We'll match that and make sure that's another donation over to our friends at Girl Develop It. They're getting some tremendous support today already. Thank you so much. That is a great shortcut call out. I didn't even know that. I've never even done that by accident. I'm always going and highlighting the entire line so I can move it.
Yeah, you don't need to do that.
Okay.
And rest assured, who is it that was talking about the mouse clicks? Emma Roan. With the mouse clicks, if there is a mouse click in there, I will let you know. But Control C, Control V, and Control X are pretty standard. If people are changing those from cut and paste, that's on them, unfortunately.
Oh, and Steve's saying just click the line number.
Yeah?
I can just click the line number? Are you kidding?
Yes.
I didn't know you could do that.
Oh, there's all sorts of cool stuff.
And I work on this product.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's so many features, I don't know how you can keep track of all of them. And then I'm adding this keyword default to our switch statement, and that's saying for everything else, I'm going to just write out bacon. I don't have to put the break in here. I put the break in here just for consistency's sake.
It's a good practice if you do end up moving that or changing that from default to some other case, you already have the break there.
Yeah, and I think my curly braces are off.
No, switch. Yep, you've got one extra curly brace in here. Let's get rid of this one on line 131. I'll take care of that for you.
Okay.
There we go.
Go to 131. If I do Control G, I can do the line number, which takes me to line 131. Whoa, what's going on there? Stop that.
Somebody started debugging.
Stop debugging. Now, you can't start debugging.
No, I cannot. I use Control D to duplicate lines, but that's available in Visual Studio.
Yep.
There is a duplicate line in Visual Studio.
Okay. And if you're asking about ReSharper, I have a brand new Visual Studio installed. I just installed it before a tech check for this, so I don't have any tools plugged in. So all my commands I'm talking to you guys about are default baked into Visual Studio.
Right. My keystroke that came with the default template that I have is Control EV will do the duplicate.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So those are what switch and elsif look like. And if we go ahead and run them, you will see what that looks like. I really wish LiveShare would let me show that.
Let's try this. If you go up to the top here, you can share a terminal from your share menu on the top right here.
Okay, well, let me fire this up and then turn on and see if that works. So share terminal. I will give you a read write because you're trustworthy enough.
All right, now I can see your D drive, but it's not actually looking at the application.
Never mind.
Well, let's try this. Try sharing, because your application comes in and it shows the menu, and then it gets to that console read line. I think you could start it and then attach the debugger.
Okay. How do we want to do that? So share the command line?
Share the command line.
All right.
And then on the command line, start running the application. I should be able to see you typing.
Okay, so .NET Run. Oh.
Do we need to step down a folder?
Yes,
So, yeah, we're watching Sarah type in the share.
Yeah, you guys are seeing me in the command line.
I'm going to bump up the font size slightly.
Yeah, no, I probably did a C# instead of .NET Core. Hold on. Oh, why did I do that? I could go into, so you guys can see what it looks like. It's in my bin. No, it's in my debug. Oh, Fritz Basics. Bin. Debug.
This is kind of cool.
Yeah, you guys get to see the command line side of things. I did a neck.
There we go.
Yeah, it doesn't really help me there.
No, you're in. This is .NET Core, so you should be good to write.
I need to be in this one, .NET Run. It's a matter of figuring out which folder I need to be in.
There it is. So there's what the application looks like. Let me move that over so it's not behind my head. There we go.
And here, let me get the garbage out of here. So I'm going to clear the screen and then do .NET Run. And why am I doing .NET Run? It's because it's a .NET Core app. .NET Core apps, I use .NET Run to run them. Okay. What?
You typed clear. Yeah, there you go.
Can't we clear .NET? Why can't we clear .NET?
All right, so there it is running.
Yeah. So if I tell it hello world and press 1, you can see it's there.
Right, there's the hellos. All right.
All right, so now what's for lunch? Well, today is Friday, so we've got a pizza party.
There you go.
And that's with the what's for lunch if else. But if I do number 3...
And the switch comes up with the same result.
With the same result, which is expected.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to press Q to quit.
All right.
We'll leave the command line there. Let's change it a bit. We'll skip the flip coin because I want to get into loops and I know we're going to be pushed for time here.
Okay.
So I want to go into Go Hide. So Visual Studio, let's have you flip back into there.
All right, so I'm looking at you here on line 45.
Line 45, we're going to talk about Go Hide. So I'm going to right click on this to help those who are asking about the right clicks. And there's an option in here that talks about go to definition.
So I'll show that here by right-clicking on my side. This is go to definition here, or the hotkey is F12.
Yeah.
And there it is.
Okay. So we are at the Go Hide. So what I like to use for the for loop demonstration is thinking about the game hide and seek and having to count while people are hiding.
Sure.
So I'm going to start with what we call a for loop. In our for loop, we're going to have a few different things. We're going to have a counter. So I'm going to say int counter equals 0. And I tend to use meaningful variable names as a demo. When I'm out in the field, it's usually whatever's the code base like that. So I might use a single variable. I might do the int I equals 0. But because we're demonstrating this, let's use meaningful things. I want to do my counter is actually who counts from 0? Programmers, kids, count from 0.
That's right, programmer friends, count from 0.
Count
0
from
is a number.
0 is a number. And I'm going to say counter is less than 20. Why? Because 0-based array. And then, so what I've got here, and I'm going to show you guys what it looks like the long way for those who are just starting out.
Okay.
The for loop, I'm going to say int counter equals 0, so that's my counter. That's going to keep track of how many times I need to run through this for loop. The counter less than 20 is how often should this loop run, how many times. And then this counter equals counter plus 1 is just saying for each step, increase the counter.
Sure, makes sense.
I'll show you guys, after we run it, I'll show you how I change it to make it a lot easier to read from a developer standpoint. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say console.writeLine. Actually, let's do console.write just because I can. Then I'm going to say, let's do string interpolation, counter, and maybe make it tab separated.
Okay, so /T
Yes.
says put a tab here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'm doing this deliberately so you guys get used to seeing, if you have like a /T, that's tab, /N is a new line. These are special characters that we can write out to the console that you can't see, but they have white space meaning to us.
Right. All right.
All right, so we'll do that. And at the top, before the for loop, I'm just going to print hide and seek so we know what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. I'm watching
Right line. This is one of those cases where I kind of wish we had the ability to multiply our string, but
I thought you could if you said new string and you gave it a single character argument and then a number.
Yeah.
I thought there was a way to do that.
Yeah, there's got to be a way. Dudek was asking, is it common to make C# console apps in the real world?
Yeah. They're great for making utilities.
Yes, I could see it for automation of like IT tasks for the developer who helps the IT folk out, but they usually use PowerShell for their scripts.
When you write things like web jobs on Azure, that's a console application, right? You're technically doing it on the console, and the console is a great equalizer because everybody has a console, whether it's Windows, Mac, or Linux. So you can build some of these tools that help you do those generic things easier.
Yeah. Okay, then I'm going to put a console write line in here. And after the for loop, just so that we have our count there. And what I'm going to do at the beginning of our console write line is I'm going to toss a /n in there. Why am I tossing a /n in there is because we're doing console.write on line 144, which means that we're staying in the same line.
Mm-hmm.
I actually want to force it to the next line. Console.write doesn't move it to the next line. Console.write line does.
Gotcha. It puts that carriage return.
It's that carriage, well, and that carriage return, it's carriage return and it's a line feed. So
on Windows.
On Windows. So carriage return, that's /r, that means go back to the beginning of the line. /n is to go down to the new line.
Gotcha.
And for those who wonder what a carriage is, look up an old school thing called a typewriter, and you'll learn about the carriage and why you have to move that back to the beginning.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save that, and I'm going to flip back to my shared terminal.
All right.
Can I CLS it? CLS it. Okay. So let's have you go back over there.
I'm over.
All right. I'll say .NET Run. Let's see what that does.
So .NET Run is a command for .NET Core that will compile and run your application all at once, right? And compile just means take that code that we typed up and turn it into something the machine understands. Okay. So there you go. Hide and seek with your loop. There's my tabs that you were describing.
And you can see why I had to do the new line, because if I didn't put that /n in there, well, let me show you what happens if I don't put the /n in there. I'm going to update my code real quick here. Leave it on command line. I'm just taking out the /n here.
Okay.
And .NET Run in it again. Taking the /n off of that so you guys can see. Let's not start the war on tabs versus spaces.
No, we don't need to do that today.
And I'm not thread sleeping anything in here.
No. All right, so if we did 5 again.
5 again.
And
notice how the lines are going across.
And also, your for loop, you said less than 20. So
Correct.
it got to 20 and stopped. So it didn't actually do the contents of that for loop at 20.
Nope.
So.
All right, I'm going to quit out of there.
All right.
And I'm going to come back into my code. I'm going to say counter +1. Put my /n in there. So you guys can see what happens if that works.
All right, so over here again.
Yes, async awake. It's not a long time to go hide, but you know what? Ready or not, here I come. Why did I start the debugger? Habits. All right. Clear my terminal. So back in the terminal. Close that guy. And we're going to do .NET Run.
There it goes.
I'm going to tell it to hide and seek.
All right. And now we have 1 through 20 because we started with that 0 and just added 1 each time.
Mm-hmm. And what this allows us to see is that we can do math in our string interpolation. Because if we go back to my code, so I'm going to press Q to quit. And press any key to quit. Now if we go back into Visual Studio, look at what I wrote.
Look at that.
Yeah.
So really what's inside those curly braces, it's some C# that it's executing and then taking that result and just dropping it as a string right here. All right.
All right. So that's the simple for loop. Now I'm going to copy and paste that loop into what we have below. So I'm actually going to grab console.write line from line 141 down to 146.
Yep, we can see you copying.
Yeah, and I'm going to put that down in all hid.
All right.
Now
there may be a song checking if they're all hid. All hid, all hid, all hid, 5, 10, 15, 20, all hid. I've never done that.
So this is watching kids song shows. So I'm a mom, 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, 2 little boys.
Okay.
And watching kids songs, there's one that's 5, 10, 15, 20, all hid. And so I'm like, well, that's a perfect way to show how we can do counting. I can say counter equal counter plus 5.
Okay.
So now I'm changing the step of my for loop. So I'm going forward, but I'm only going to be counting by 5s.
Sure. That makes sense.
And because I'm going to do 5, 10, 15, 20, I'm going to take my counter plus 1 off. So it's just counter.
Okay.
Brave Cobra 2, I'm not playing any more music right now.
No. Well,
you guys catching me sing on the live stream. That happens rarely.
We'll start the Brady thinking music, yes. All right. Pondering deeply.
So now let's go ahead and do another .NET run in our shared terminal so you guys can see what the counter equals counter plus 5, how that changes things.
Okay.
So I am still counting forward, so now I'm going to run all hid. And because I start at 0 and I end at less than 20, that's why we don't see the 20 and that's why we see the 0. That's okay. I get it.
Right. It stopped at 20. It didn't finish. It didn't do something when it hit 20, right? It does not process what's inside the block. Okay.
Well, let's fix that. So I'm going to do the counter is going to start at equal to 0. Counter is less than or equal to 20. Counter equals counter plus 5.
Makes sense.
That way our 20 gets included, and then if I flip back and do my .NET run. I like the shared terminal thing.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
So there we go. 0, 5, 10, 15, 20.
Yep.
All right. That makes sense. Now, isn't there a way, let's go back to the code here.
Sure.
And isn't there a way for me to take this equals counter plus 5 and simplify that? That seems like redundant, me writing counter equals counter.
Yeah. Well, before we do it down here on counter, let's go back up to on line 142 and go hide and simplify it there where it makes sense first.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because using these operators in here, while it makes sense for those of us in the field for a while, for newcomers, it's a little harder to grasp what they're doing.
Okay.
So I'm going to change from counter equals counter plus 1 to something called counter plus plus. So we're using what they call a unary increment operator. Unary means it takes one operand. In this case, it's going to take the counter variable, and it's going to do counter equals counter plus 1 here. So plus plus is a single increment.
That makes sense.
Now, so that's that one. Counter equals counter plus 5. I know some people are like, oh, if you do plus plus, then is it like plus plus 5 times? Do we keep going like that?
Please don't.
You lose track of how many pluses are there.
Yeah, don't do that.
But I can do the plus equals 5.
Okay.
Now, what plus equals is saying is the thing on the left plus 5. So each time around, step it. So counter equals counter plus 5 can easily be shortened to counter plus equals 5.
So that's the same. It's the shorthand method of what we just had in there. It does the exact same thing.
So shorthand for counter equals counter plus 5. I should use my laptop keyboard so I'm not so loud on here. Sorry, guys. Don't mean to deafen you with the keyboard.
Love the clicky keyboard, let me tell you.
Yeah, I use one of the Microsoft Natural ergonomic keyboards, and every time I get more, I just kind of store them away so that when one dies, I can just pull another one out. All right, so the all hid now has that shortcut of counter equals plus equals 5.
Counter plus plus is not a variable, therefore counter plus 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 isn't valid. Right.
Right.
All
right, so, are you complaining about the counter plus plus up here?
No, but when we tried to do the plus 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 plus.
Oh, plus 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 plus. All the pluses?
Yeah.
If I do a .NET run, and then if I run the hide and seek again, where we changed it from counter to counter plus plus,
still
notice
works.
Counter plus plus doesn't break. And the reason why counter plus plus doesn't break is because that counter variable is within the scope. It's within the for's parentheses. That's why it says that's okay.
All right.
And then if I do 6, you guys can see the 0, 5, 10, 15, 20. So the counter plus equals 5 works.
That's simple. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. We're running out of time.
Yep.
And we're actually right at the end of your last two here that you wanted to show, it looks like.
Let's do the rocket launch and leave it at that, and then the space adventures I can take I'll do it as a blog post. How's that sound?
Sure. Okay.
Okay. So rocket launch loops is going to be the last one I show you guys. Brendonius, if you're going to stop in, come in. Aaron and Cincy, yes, this is a one squiggly line poster back there from one of my talks. Okay, so I am going to go down to launch rocket.
Okay.
Now, everybody's used to seeing for loops going forward. You do realize now, though, that we can also go backward. So I'm going to grab my console right line and put that in there. And then we're going to do a for loop. So I'm going to do for, I'm going to say int countdown. Might help if I can type. You guys get to see all my live typos, which is awesome. And countdown timer. And I'm going to say I'm going to start counting down from 10. My countdown timer is greater than 0. And then my countdown timer minus.
So we can do that same step operation downward that we did upward.
Yeah. So we can go backwards too. A lot of people I talk to, they're like, wait, for loops can go backwards? Yes, they can. And so then I can do console.WriteLine. And why write line? Because it's a countdown. It's epic. It needs its own line. So we're going to do that. And then at the bottom, of course, because it's a launch, do you guys know about snippets?
We didn't talk about snippets.
Okay, I will show you guys something. Jeff can't do this in LiveShare because LiveShare doesn't seem to support this just yet. But if I type CW, this is a built-in snippet. This is a built-in, yep, CW tab. Async await knows exactly where I'm going. If I type CW and press tab twice, it'll do the console.WriteLine for me. And then I can go blast off. And save it. And so now if I do my shared terminal.
Let's go over there.
All right. And package delivery while I'm here. Okay, .NET Run, rocket launch, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and blast off.
Fantastic.
So I've got the basics of loops and ifs and switches to get you down the right path for just starting out.
Cool. Right. If, switch, loops, they're really the basics, right? The start of these things. Isn't WriteLine for strings only? Well, when you're writing with an integer like this, it implicitly casts it to a string. So Elon Musk must be jealous. No, we're not going that far. All right. So we also showed while loops up there, and you did it with a do loop.
I did do a do while loop to show that a do while has a thing with a menu.
Let me see. Let me go back up there. That was way up here in the run.
Right.
Now, go ahead.
I will add all of this code. I will actually add a while sample in there too, so you guys can see the difference between do while and while. But then I will add all of this code into the GitHub repository that Jeff has for this workshop. So you guys will be able to pull the whole complete thing down.
Very cool. Thanks so much for joining us today, Sarah. This was really good.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
So that's going to wrap it up here on this topic, and we're going to get ready for... Oh, wait. Izzy has a good question. Let's touch this real quick. Between 4 and 4 each.
Yes. So 4 is good when you know how many iterations, how many times you need to cycle through a loop. A for each is used for stepping through collections of things, whether it's through strings, maybe you're stepping through the number of characters in a string, maybe you're stepping through a collection of numbers, such as like the amount of grades somebody gets, calculating the average, something like that. You could be looping through a thing of objects. So my planet object, the Space Adventures collections, I will code that up and put that in the repo as well, so you guys can see I'm going to create a planet object and do a for each to loop through that.
There you go. This sample down here. All right.
Yep.
Very cool. Thank you, Sarah.
Oh, you're welcome.
All righty. I am going to... I'll catch you later, and I'm going to
Yep.
start getting our next guest ready to go.
Bye, guys. Thank you for having me.
Alrighty. See ya.
See ya.